Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Character Reveal. It's that show where we reveal the character of lots of creative people around the world, and we're back again, and we're pretending to do streaks now. As always, it's me, it's your host, Dom, aka Brother Dom, all over the internet, and once again, I'm joined by the ever-so-delightful co-host. Would you like to tell the people who you are?
Hey guys, it's Stephanie. And hey, the guys was inclusive. That's a gender-neutral guys. But it's Stephanie, aka Captain Steph on Twitter, the Snow Queer on Tumblr, and we are back again, gasp, with another guest.
Yeah, we're pretending
Very
to have
exciting.
some consistency. I'm very excited to have this guest on, actually. Known him for a few different things, but would you like to introduce yourself? I'm sure you'll give a better description than I can.
Sure, I'll do what I can. I'm Pete. I go by Phonetic Hero in the handle-sphere, and I write some music for video games, and I'll do video game remixes here and there, and put out originals every once in a while as well.
So we are in the presence of a hobbyist and professional musician. I feel like I'm near a rock star.
I don't know about that. I've got a couple good gigs under my belt, but still, working my way up.
Hey, that's all we can ask for. But before we dive into our fun shenanigans, how you doing today?
Pretty good. I just got up from a nap a little bit ago, so it doesn't get much better than that.
That is the dream. How you doing
You're
today,
on
Steph?
mountain time, right? You're in the mountains?
Yep.
It's a little bit earlier there.
Yeah, it's a little...
Slightly, yeah.
2 hours?
So I guess...
Yeah.
I guess it would be pretty weird if I was getting up from a nap at,
I was going to say, 7:30,
whatever.
that's a choice.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes you have to take weird naps. I grew up when my dad worked midnight shifts, so he would take naps from like 7 to 10. He's like, oh, I'm up for my nap, time to go to work at midnight. So there's always a weird sense.
I lived in Baltimore for a while, and when I was living out there, my sleep schedule was completely turned around, so I'd be working until probably 10 or 12, 10 in the morning or 12 noon, and then sleep until 7 or 8 at night.
Oof. That second shift is rough. But,
I would not like to be back to that anytime soon.
Yeah, I totally understand. But we brought you here to talk about music and video games because that's the space that I live in. It's my two favorite things, so why not?
For sure, me as well. That's why I decided to make it a career.
Hey, that's good stuff.
Solid choice.
So, just some stuff you've done. You are on the recently released Wargroove soundtrack. I think you authored the whole soundtrack, I want to believe?
Yep, yeah, that's right.
Awesome. And for those who don't know, Wargroove is a game that's out for a few platforms. I think PS4, Nintendo Switch, and PC. It's basically a turn-based tactics
Xbox
game.
One, too.
It's on Xbox
well.
One? Oh, cool.
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't do the crossplay over there, right? No, it's PS4
I think it's
that doesn't
PS4
do
that actually
crossplay.
doesn't do the crossplay.
Because they don't want to play with people. It's so sad.
Yeah, Sony's weird about it, but hey, whatever. Take what you can get.
What happened? So I was excited for this game. I saw in one of their Nindies reels, they always do Nindy reels. I was like, wait a minute, that game looks like Advance Wars, and there's a dog. And I think that's what a lot of people may have thought. So, one of your big accomplishments. So I guess we can start with that. How did you really get into composing for this specific game and this team?
I guess to answer that question, I have to take a little bit of a step back because I did the original theme for the Smash Brothers mod called Project M, which was
that was huge. That's a big deal
for a while. Yeah, and they played it at tournaments and stuff, and then Nintendo got a little more serious about the competitive scene, and they had to stop doing their thing. But that was a really fun gig. Everyone was in it just because it was a passion project, which was what made it so fulfilling. And so I got to do that track. I did one other one for that game, but my roommate ended up finding a GIF on Twitter of some early Wargroove art, and I saw it and obviously had the same thought as you. Hey, that looks like Advance Wars, and I'm a big Advance Wars fan myself. I've put tons of hours into Advance Wars 2.
It's so good.
Especially.
I love it so much.
It's great. It's
Who's one of your favorite CEOs before we get into it?
Sammy's my favorite for
Oh,
sure.
she's so good.
I love the just running the map with her mechs is so fun.
It's a treat to just sprint across the map and just take all the cities. So, yep.
Yeah, and when you get her super, like, there's no stopping you.
Instant capture. That game wasn't balanced. You're right, but it was.
That was what made
tons
it
of time
fun,
into it.
in my opinion. Yeah, like the imbalance was it was what made it fun because you could purposely handicap yourself if you wanted, or you could just pick ridiculously strong COs, and there was so much you could do. But yeah, anyway, I guess back to how to get Wargroove. I saw that GIF that my roommate had sent me, and I decided to send them an email after he encouraged me a little bit, and it turned out that they'd heard of Project M. I put that track in the few demos that I sent them.
Oh yeah, you gotta lead with that.
Yeah, for sure. And let's see, I sent them a few demos. I offered to write them an additional demo for the game just based on what I'd seen. We ended up having a little bit of a Skype call, and I got a couple details about the game just so I could put together a better demo.
Cool.
That track ended up being Mercia's theme. So I put together the first minute or so of that one and then sent it over when it was ready, and they ended up loving it and bringing me on board.
Awesome.
So that was, that's the story of how I ended up writing the music for Wargroove.
Nice. I don't want to gush too much. I feel like that'd be unprofessional. But her theme is
away,
very
Dom.
good. It's so good. I love this game. I feel like I have to say, you get all the information out of the way. I've bought this game. I was looking forward to it. And we've chatted in the past, like many years ago. But it's a good theme. The music fits so well, and it really evokes what you're going for. So, I mean, obviously,
Thanks so much.
Yeah. So I'm going to buy that soundtrack when I complete the game. I want to make sure I hear everything first and get acquainted with it before I buy it.
That's a good idea.
There's a few games I've got soundtracks for that I haven't played or completed, and I don't regret any of them, but I want to fully experience it fresh.
Yeah, I hear you, and I think that's a smart way to do any gaming experience. If you really like the music, I think you should finish the game first, or at least play as much as you want to play. Sometimes you get a dropper, but you still like the music, and in those cases, I would still encourage you to go and support the musical artist.
Oh, for sure. I really appreciate this. I don't know if it's a new trend or if it's been going for a while. The first time I remember seeing it was with Bastion and Transistor, but artists releasing the soundtracks to the games sort of separately from the game itself. It was sort of, or maybe Super Meat Boy saying Danny Baranowski, separately from Super Meat Boy. He's like, hey, you can go buy my soundtrack on Bandcamp. And I find that's really nice.
Yeah.
It's a good way to support the artist as almost
It is
separate
nice.
but different thing.
I think having the option, like with Wargroove, for instance, we've got the option to bundle it with the game on Steam, which I think is another really good idea. It just makes it that much more accessible for more people.
Absolutely. And, especially when it's good music, I think we've hit a really good few years. I guess we've been in one for the last 10 or 15 years, but there's like a lot of like nice, good.
Just the last 10 or 15 years.
The last forever, I guess.
It's crazy that seems like a long time with how the trends in technology and the internet have gone, but like really, as far as the paradigms of an industry, that's not that much time.
Yeah, it's actually kind of scary.
Was that the difference between Kingdom Hearts 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3?
Yeah,
Give or take.
Yeah,
wow,
exactly.
It's also weird to think about that. The first indie game came out on Kingdom Hearts 2, and the last one came out on Kingdom Hearts 3. Wargroove just skirted right in there, more or less. No, it's we had like Celeste last year, and a lot of people talked about the soundtrack for that. And I know people were talking
It's
about
so
Wargroove.
good.
There's so many good ones, and I appreciate. Nothing against all the talented musicians in the orchestral music, but there's something nice about, individuals sort of working on a very small team of either of themselves or with a few musicians to get a very succinct sound, and being very talented but not necessarily having access to a 100-piece orchestra. and hearing what they can create with either DAW or the music they make.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, you have Cuphead, where they got full jazz bands to make music, and it's
Oh man,
everything in between. It's nice to see what people are doing without the instant, almost unlimited access to an orchestra the way a AAA game might have.
yeah. I've had kind of a similar observation in that I think it really comes down more to compositional style. A lot of AAA games obviously have the big orchestral scores, and even when they've got a really good melody, it's kind of buried among bombast, and it doesn't
Yeah,
really
I
get
know
a
what you
chance
mean.
to shine unless it's like a lower, a more either serene or like chill track. But then you've got this generation who grew up with like the NES and the SNES, which are extreme. Like most of the great soundtracks are just hyper melodic, and I think a lot
Yeah.
of composers now are kind of bringing that hyper melodic style to what they're writing.
Okay,
And
that does
I
make
mean,
sense.
yeah, like a lot of the Wargroove soundtrack was orchestral, but I still like I I don't want to say I tried to keep melody at the forefront because I find it hard to write any other way. Like it's just difficult for me to not have a melody at the forefront most of the time.
Sure, and I think that's what really sticks with people is when there's something that you can hum. As
Hmm.
cheap of a metric as that
Mhm.
sounds, if you can hum it, I feel like that's what really sticks. I mean, like you said
Yeah,
with
I
the NES and the
definitely
SNES,
agree.
yeah, you think about the Super Mario Brothers theme. It's like depending on when you cut it off, those first 6 or 7 notes, bum 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 bum, like everybody knows that, and
Right.
that was what like one channel on a MIDI compressor or something like that. It's just the most simple instrument they could have possibly used, but it was so iconic that they still use it now. They might have 100 instruments playing those same 6 notes and doing all kinds of musical theory that I don't understand, but we
Yeah,
recognize those 6 notes.
and like it's so crazy how genius Koji Kondo was. Just he knew exactly what he was writing at the time, and like he had a vision for what he wanted to put down before he put it down, and as a result, like the Mario theme or the Zelda theme or whatever he was writing at the time, you can translate it perfectly to whatever instrumentation he was looking for at the time. Like Super Mario Brothers is obviously like crazy big band jazz stuff, and then once Super Mario 64 came around, we got a much better representation of what that would have sounded like. And same with Zelda, like the the NES track obviously just has 4 channels going, but when it's translated to an orchestra, like it works out perfectly. And a lot of times it's really hard to do that with chip tunes that come out now. It's
I wonder if
not
it.
that they're not that they're poorly written, but that people have capitalized on the medium so much that it just has its own sound and it kind of like sits where it needs where it sits in and of itself rather than being written as a translation of something else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I think we've kind of
Mhm.
when they were originally doing the music for like the Zeldas and the Marios and Mega Man, because I want to bring that up in a second. They were they were limited by so much, so they were trying to push their
Oh yeah.
restrictions versus people who are very intimately aware of what these sound cards can do. Like so many people, like Anamanaguchi or Professor Shy Guy, will push things through a Game Boy sound chip. So they really stretch it to like, what can we do with it that's not necessarily trying to imitate an orchestra, but trying to do
Hmm.
its own thing. And I think it's not that you necessarily lose so much, but it's so different that if you were to play those on traditional instruments, it wouldn't be the same, and it would be kind of missing the point. Um,
Yeah, exactly. And like that's kind of the feeling that I get from a lot of chip stuff and game soundtracks that have chip music now. And like I'm definitely not saying that it's a bad soundtrack because I love chip tunes and it's definitely got its characteristic sound. But if I was to sit down and try and remix it or arrange it into something with like a modern orchestral template or not template but palette, it would be pretty difficult in most cases. And like that's fine
yeah,
because again, I love chiptunes, but it's just an interesting observation that Koji Kondo in particular had such a vision for what he was putting down at that point.
Sure. I think you get some really interesting things with when people say chiptune. I think a lot of audiences will recognize some of the music from Undertale, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the final track, Megalovania, I'm talking in your territory now, Steph. I think the reason that track works so well.
Get out of my face.
there's so much chiptune in it, but going back in it, you can say was this an original guitar composition or a chiptune composition? Like, which came first? Like, if you look at his Homestuck stuff, the Halloween hack stuff, and all of it,
Mm-hmm.
and they both play off of each other in a way that, if this wasn't guitar and chiptune, it wouldn't quite sound the same. Like, you need a little bit of synthetic with that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I find that marriage very interesting of something that's 100% artificial and something that's very natural. It also creates a different environment. I watched a video about how the title track Undertale from that works so well because it's the first track that uses something that's completely acoustic, and you can hear some of the imperfections in it, and that really
Mm-hmm.
is a good story beat. And I think that's something chiptune gives us, is a level of you can either match traditional instruments to an extent, or you can go for the artificial plasticity so that you can come back from it to get a different feeling. That's fascinating.
Definitely. It's a really versatile medium. I think the main reason that I fell in love with chiptune so long ago was or at least from a writing standpoint. I've obviously always loved it in video games, but the limitations kind of force you to write in that hypermelodic way, as opposed to having all of the options can sometimes be very overwhelming, and you don't really know where to start or what you really want to do. But then you sit down and you have 3 tonal channels and 1 noise channel, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm pretty limited here. I better get my act together if I want to write something cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that kind of makes me think about some of the old people. So I want to... It is a 2-part statement, but a 1-part question. The reason I brought up Mega Man, I wanted to bring up influences. So some people who are big Journey fans will recognize Elecman's theme. I don't know what that song was, but it's legit just a Journey song that they wrote, and that's Elecman's theme.
Yeah.
And I can't remember
Right.
which song that is, but it was definitely, man, that's pretty masterful that you could create that in this medium. I mean, you definitely stole something, so sorry that you did that, but they were clearly influenced. I'm not sure why that song made them think of, electricity in the hardest level in the game. Cool, great. But I wanted to ask you, it sounds like Kenji Kondo a little bit was, but did you have any other influences in sort of, not Wargroove necessarily, but getting you started into the whole music career path?
It's hard to name specific people. I guess my influences are more in the form of games when I look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, that counts all the same to me.
Let's talk about Wargroove first, I guess. But I think the main influences for that soundtrack as a whole were Final Fantasy Tactics, which is one of my favorite games ever and has one of my favorite soundtracks ever, and Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, which again has one of my favorite soundtracks ever and is a very good game to play all the way through, even if the gameplay gets pretty stale by standards today.
Fair enough.
But I loved the really intimate sound of Crystal Chronicles and the meshing of all the different world and ethnic instruments. I thought that was awesome, and I tried to use that principle throughout the soundtrack in Wargroove. And then Tactics is just masterful composition by Hitoshi Sakimoto and I think Masaharu Iwata. And
it sounds possible.
That whole soundtrack, if you haven't heard it, is amazing, and I would definitely recommend it. It's one of the ones that I pull up frequently on my iPod, just walking around town or whatever.
I do listening to game music in public. It is very good.
I've been listening to Final Fantasy VIII a lot recently, which is another of my favorite Final Fantasy soundtracks. But yeah, back to the overall Wargroove sound was definitely shaped with those 2 soundtracks in mind.
Okay, that makes sense. Sort of like strategic and mythical sort of
right. Yeah,
sort of soundtracks.
I also do lots of different kinds of music. Before Wargroove, I wrote the music for Skyrogue, which is kind of like a flight sim shmup hybrid.
That sounds like such a scary combination. Like shmups are so tight and like so many bullets, and then but you actually have to fly the plane now. That sounds terrifying.
It's a little hard to get the feel for the controls, but man, like the way that they plotted it out just feels great once you get the hang of it. And it does have the tightness of a shmup for sure, and you still get the like one of the descriptors in the original game's like bio for it was Fushi, and that's definitely you feel that for sure. But that soundtrack is like all drum and bass, and it's like combinations of different kinds of chip sounds, and a lot of what wasn't chip sounds was like deliberately picked or made synth patches, or like orchestral stuff or whatever to just kind of meld it all together to get that like early 90s computer sound or arcade sound.
Hey, I heard like throwback aesthetic is very in right now, so
Yeah, and who doesn't love that General MIDI Windows 95 sound, right?
this whole site's dedicated to it. So and Vaporwave is coming back, so I guess a lot of people.
Yeah, no, it really is great. Like if you use it in the right context, and you can put some really good stuff together. And I definitely have a soft spot for the general MIDI stuff because I started out with Finale, so many years ago.
Oh wow, I used that in our middle school teacher had a band teacher had a program for that, and I remember playing with it like, this is the best thing ever. Like, we can make music, and everyone's like, you're a huge nerd. What are you doing? I don't regret a minute of it.
I was gonna say, was that the first time you found out that you were a huge nerd, Dom?
That was the first time that we were all using a nerdy program, and I was the one who got like called out for it. So I was like, what the heck, guys, we all have to use this. And like, you're the only one who wanted to download it at home though, so like, what's going on?
Come on, it's great.
Yeah, I love music sequencing. Even though like I'm bad, I don't understand music principles, I still like playing with it and trying to get to something that at least sounds plausible. And then I ask like a musical friend to say, hey, is this all on key? Because it sounds good to me, but I don't know. And they're like, move these notes, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm tone deaf, I don't know what to do.
It's definitely a lot of fun, and you can, there's plenty of resources online that you can use to train your ear, even if you don't have the formal background.
Oh, I have to look into some of that stuff.
For what it's worth, I did study some music, and I couldn't tell. I still can't read music. I'm lucky in that I'm a singer, so like, I don't have to be able to read music to do the thing.
You do have a beautiful singing voice. Why haven't we collabed yet? Like, we talk every week.
I don't know. Just start like recording. It's because you still haven't gotten me to freestyle with you.
It's been over 10 years at this point, probably. It'll happen one day. I feel like that's sort of we sort of built a theme with our comeback already with like retro and like glitch level. Like, we've talked about Vaporwave and Throwback to MIDI. And in last episode, we talked about like Moire from Photographs.
Moire, like the way, like when you take a picture of your computer screen and it's got those like weird distressing on it.
Yeah,
it's apparently called Moire.
Yeah,
I learned.
That's
interesting. We learned
that
last week.
I didn't know that.
So maybe that'll be our
this week.
Yeah, maybe glitchiness will be our comeback theme. So Pete, I think we first met and started talking during a Sonic the Hedgehog CD remix collaboration from OC Remix. Is that probably the first time?
I think so.
I saw that you had 2 tracks on there. I went back to remember. I remember, cause I thought I was right, and I was. And you made one of the more terrifying tracks on the album.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Sonic CD had 2 soundtracks. There's a US version and a Japanese version, which was even more complicated by the fact that every level had a past, a present, and a good and bad future. And for whatever
reason, I don't know how they had the budget to have 2 separate soundtracks with 3 separate tracks for each level. Like, that's an absurd amount of music.
So the story that I know is that Sega US just had built a studio for whatever reason before that, and they're like, we're going to utilize it. But since the past is in a different format, the past is the same in both countries, so it doesn't match the melodies of the American music.
Oh, that's why it was so weird.
Yeah, it doesn't match. It's just wrong because they made it on a different format for the CD. It's a whole thing, but for whatever reason, they got like this really funky. I guess the EU and the Japanese version had a really funky boss music, like, oh yeah, worked out Sucker Death, like with samples. We got like this nightmarish thing, which didn't fit the tone of Robotnik's machines because they were all like silly gimmick machines. So it's just
so
this weird thing. But
it
you
makes
did a remix
it so
for
unsettling.
that. Yeah. I think, if I recall, the song, I hope you don't mind me calling this, it was called Yours Truly, Satan.
That's right, yeah.
For the Boss US remix, and another track for Wacky Workbench.
Well, there was that weird Easter egg in the sound test where if you put in some code, that song would start playing, and you would get that really scary-looking version of Sonic.
Yeah, he'd have like a disturbed face.
Yeah, like Fun is Infinite with Sega, and it was signed by Majin.
Yeah, and I think it was, of course, probably funny. Yeah, I'm sure it's probably funny with their music. Like, it probably looked like someone just graffitied Sonic and like had their goofy boss music, but with ours, it was just like, oh, what the hell is this?
It was a nightmare.
Like the Negasonic.
It was the worst. That's what started the Sonic EXE meme ROM hack thing. Probably, I wouldn't be surprised. But I guess I want to talk a little bit about remix culture, OC remix in video games, and some Sonic if we can. Because what would it be if I didn't try to jam Sonic?
Yeah, this wouldn't be an episode of anything that we've ever tried to put out. If Sonic didn't,
you got to bring it full circle every single podcast that you do.
Yeah, it's he does a little spin dash, he turns into a circle. It's all full circle. So
there you go. That was easy.
Time is a flat spin dash.
Oh no, I like that. I have to use that for something. But what kind of was it? Just part of your music journey to get into the remix scene, or was that something you specifically felt like an attachment to, or kind of just want to talk about like remixing in general?
Yeah, I started with arranging video game tunes, and when I was talking about Finale earlier, my brother had gotten it because he also was a musician. We were both percussionists, and he got Finale when I think he was in 10th grade, so I would have been in 7th. Cool. And I didn't write much original music. I just tried to write video game remixes, but I never finished anything at that point. I would write 4 bars and then get bored and do something else. But I kind of screwed with Finale off and on for probably booted up once every 6 months, and it kind of went that way until I was a junior or senior in high school. And then I actually wrote my junior year. I took music theory in high school, and I really liked it, so I decided to take it again as an independent study when I was a senior. I worked something out with the band director, and I ended up just sitting in his office using Finale while he would be teaching the rest of the class in a room down the hall. And during that year, I wrote a marching band opener because I was a big marching band dork too. We'll get to that in a second.
That's good.
I wrote a marching band opener based on the music from Super Metroid, and it covered the main theme, Green Brinstar, and Lower Norfair, I think, which doesn't make any sense thematically because Lower Norfair is toward the end of the game, and this is the opening track for a marching show. But
hey, sometimes the music has to just work with what works ever musically, and
yeah, that's kind of how I felt too. I wasn't really sure what to do with it, and I was just getting my feet wet with actually finishing stuff, and it took me most of the year to write that, I think, and we played it for the last concert or two of the year, which was really cool for me.
I was gonna say that must have been so awesome.
It was really cool. So yeah, I again, original music it was kind of an afterthought when I was first getting going because I was so excited about arranging video game tunes, and I guess it was kind of daunting too. The thought of making something original is kind of scary, especially when it's when music is as like the compositional process is very involved, and I knew enough to know that it was involved, but didn't know enough to really get started with it on my own. So it kind of scared me away for a while. But
Were
then
you one of the guys that like worked on like VGmusic.com, like all those midis?
no, I didn't, but I did download a metric shitload of those.
There were so many good remixes on that site. It's
They're-
still up and running. Like it's people are releasing music for new consoles.
That's amazing.
there are-
That site is like pretty much completely responsible for why I have the soft spot for general MIDI sounds that I do now.
They're so nice and relaxing. Ironically enough, I went to go see if VG Music was still up, and it was. They have a Discord server, and they had music for Nintendo Switch. So I'm like, what games are on there? I assumed it would be Mario Odyssey, but it is in fact Sonic Mania, and there are 12 tracks, 11 of which are from the same person. So they're keeping the dream alive.
That's
so
good. Yeah, it was always like
we'll have to
one
dig this
guy
up.
who was really enthusiastic about covering all the tracks from one game.
Those are the real heroes, making
For
sure that
sure.
we all had something to build from.
Yeah, and a lot of times it would be like the really obscure games that would be covered by just one person.
Oh, and they would do all the tracks and then have their own remixes and then a medley
Right.
and then my favorite was looking for things that weren't Sonic CD that had like a good future tag on them to see what people thought like was a good idea to do that remix style. And it's actually really nice to hear when people are like, hey, what if this was actually nice and peaceful and the water was crystal blue instead of like red or something?
Oh yeah.
Again, true heroes.
Yeah, so I guess coming back to like remix culture and stuff.
Yes.
When I was in college, I think I discovered OCR. Well, I'd heard like a track here and there, on YouTube before it was ubiquitous as it is today. And
Oh,
like,
yeah, I guess YouTube wasn't as omnipresent as it is today. It's
weird.
That's
to think
weird to
about.
consider, actually.
Right. When I was in high school, it was people used it, but it wasn't a huge platform by any means. But yeah, anyway, like I would hear a
MySpace
track
days.
here and there, and it would be sometimes it would be a good one, and sometimes it would be like one that I wasn't that into. But I eventually discovered the site more fully in like 2011, I think.
Okay.
And I put together a
sounds
Castlevania
familiar.
remix and submitted it in April, and like it sucked. It wasn't good at all. So I got turned down by the judges panel and got mad about it, of course, as everyone does when they get turned down by the OCR judges.
It's everyone's fault but mine.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody can take responsibility when you're 19. But
yeah, the best years of our lives were making
sure, yeah,
not great
whatever.
remixes. Sure, let's call 19 the best years of our lives. I mean, I don't mean that, but let's go with that for now.
And I guess that kind of lit a fire under my ass to really get better with music. And of course, I was still terrible for many years. But eventually, like, just doing all of the Mega Man competitions that they had where you would have to... I don't think I ever did any of the ones where it was, like, head-to-head for that. But I always did the Wily Gauntlets. I remember when the first one was posted in the competitions forum, and I got really excited about it.
How did those work again? You just have to mix up some songs, or
you picked your own Robot Master, and then Dark Sword picked it was like a Wily theme for that week, and you had to mix the two together. And then the second one got significantly weirder as far as the weekly theme picks, but I met some of my best friends through that process. One of them I'm actually living with right now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, he went by Ectogemia when he was on the forums, but...
I do recognize the name, so I remember hearing some of their music and appreciating it.
Yeah, cool. He and I were about to be on a team, and then he ditched me to be on a team with Ben Briggs.
Oh,
I mean, hey, that's understandable. Ben's really great.
Ben has some good songs as well. I felt like that was sort of I don't know if it's true, but it feels like there was sort of a like 2 years before I was active there, so probably like '09. I was active around the same time as you. And
Yeah,
there was like a golden age of like great people then.
I agree. Yeah, there was like I mean, maybe we think that because we were on the site at that time, but it definitely seemed to be more communal around the time that I started using it in 2011, and my friendly rivalry with Ectogemia was one of the things that pushed me to be the musician that I am now.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm being honest with myself, that the only reason it feels like a golden age in retrospect is just like there were a lot of Sonic albums and remixes coming out. Like, I didn't consider that till just now, but I was on one of the albums. And
that's
like
fair.
The Sonic 1 came out. I feel like Project Chaos was still like a couple years, like only a few years old at that point, and
right.
That must have been it. Like in retrospect, and I was like coming out of college and like I need community.
Dude, that's a solid look for nostalgia bias. I'm impressed.
I didn't realize it at the time, but that must have been it. And there were some good no, because like Donkey Kong Country 2 remix album came out. There were other things coming out.
There was a lot. I'm
willing to say that was a golden few years. I'll mark it now. Look in the history books 10 years from now. That was the golden age of OC remix.
Yeah, all right. I'll roll with that. I think I think it just felt more communal back then. I'm not sure what exactly the difference is between now and then, but there was a lot more like people were really excited about the competitions before there was a point where they got like people stopped signing up because they just got kind of burnt out on them, and the people who always competed were just exhausted.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it felt it was very welcoming at one point, and it was easy to hop in and like be part of the group.
Yeah, I guess all things have sort of generational fluxes and all that.
For sure.
Have you seen anything on the remix culture around YouTube or anything like that? Have you seen anything over there? Mostly what I see is mashups of like pop songs and stuff, and there's some really creative things. But I'm wondering if you might know anything else about that.
I'm not really I haven't looked into anything that's specifically on YouTube. I know that one of the guys actually who was on the Sonic CD album, Garrett Williamson, he has gotten great mileage out of YouTube, and he's an extremely talented, skilled musician.
I have to
really
check him out. I want to say he was G-Mixer before?
Yeah, that was him. Mm-hmm.
Okay. He made some good stuff too.
He writes awesome, like funky pop stuff, and he did a Fire Emblem remix a while back. I haven't kept up with him very much lately, but I know that he's probably still doing great stuff. He's been doing a lot of original music that's obviously also really good.
I do like following musicians because they're always good at. I've noticed people that can make remixes tend to be able to make good originals, so that's good as well. Mm-hmm. We had Insane in the Rain on before. He does a lot of like jazzy covers.
He's super man. He's great.
It is. It's nice seeing the different kind of music.
It's fun to talk to too.
Yeah. Good.
Cool guy.
Yeah, I've run into him like once or twice at MagFest. I think he knows Doug Perry, who was actually my. He's Drum Ultima on OCR, and he was actually my percussion instructor at KU, which is funny.
It all comes full circle, but it's good to know that so many people are actually like nice and friendly people. Like even the younger people are like, oh hey, what's going on, guys? Here's all the talent that I have. Like it was nice to talk to here, and it was sobering hearing somebody that much younger than us. We felt very old that day, but it was also refreshing to know that the youth are following up in our steed and making a lot of good things.
Yeah. One of my really good friends actually was he's significantly younger than I am. And me and Nathan were talking earlier about how like it's amazing that some of these kids they didn't grow up with like the Super Nintendo or the Nintendo
that's a good point.
when they were in their heydays, but they like a lot of them still picked up the consoles or like figured out emulation because that was a thing when they were kids, which is absolutely insane. But they figured that stuff out and they sought it out just because they liked it or it was cool. And that's always like kind of fascinating to me. And also like gives me a warm fuzzy because the newer generations still value what we valued, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo won't let any of their themes die. Sonic Team is going to make us love Green Hill Zone whether we like it or not. I mean, I do. And there's just been a lot of... I mean, Pokemon has had like a lot of cultural resurgences. I mean, their games have never stopped coming out, but Twitch has like all the episodes streaming, but they had the Twitch Plays Pokemon phenomenon. So like... Right. I see Pidgeot and people are like, that's bird Jesus. I'm like, hey, whatever gets you to Game Freak, that's fine with me. I mean, I'm salty that no one remembers Pulse Man, Game Freak's other game. That's why we have Rotom and Volt Tackle the move. But that's fine. I'll bear that stress for another day. Fun fact, if you hear the music from the first level in Pulse Man, Neo Tokyo, it's basically the rival trainer's theme in Pokemon Diamond, I believe. It has a lot of the
now
chorus
I'm
is
gonna
insane.
have to look up that soundtrack because I've never heard of it.
If you look up Pulse Man, he looks just like Rotom from Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, and then he had a move called Volt Tackle, which is just Pikachu's Volt Tackle, and then some of the songs were the same. It's actually there's a lot going on, and it's an amazing soundtrack because Game Freak knows what's going on, and that's my soapbox. I played that back on Sega Channel, which like approximately 70 people had a Sega Channel, but it's
well, hey, you got me to look it up, so
yeah,
mission accomplished.
Yes. There it is. Do you have an affinity towards like the Sonic lore, or was that just like a soundtrack that you saw and like you wanted to jump on the remix, or like are you in the Sonic fandom as one of us weird people, or
is there Sonic quote unquote lore, Dom?
There's tons of lore. Don't test me.
Most of it's not G-rated, so careful on the cast.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I'll put it this way: I like Sonic.
For what it's worth, you can swear.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we can. This is an R-rated podcast.
Well, they're gonna start flying now. Nah, I'll try and keep myself under control. So let me put it this way: I like Sonic, but I'm not part of the fandom.
That's fair. That's a good place to be.
Sonic 2 was actually the one that I played the most because when I was younger, I had Sega Smash Pack 2, which was for Windows 95 or XP or something, and it had Sonic 2, Comix Zone, Vector Man 2, Flicky, Kid Chameleon, and Shining Force, which is now one of my favorite games.
That's a strong set of games, I'm not gonna lie.
It was pretty stacked, yeah. I loved Comix Zone too, but oh my god, it's hard.
That game did not care about your feelings or if you had a good day or not.
No, like you have to know where every secret is if you have any, like there's just no way you're getting anywhere unless you comb the entire game for secrets.
And the jumps are tough. Like I remember them not being, they were like very pixel precise. So I keep falling through like the whole, like the comic panel would break. Did you ever hear of a game called Dynamite Headdy?
I heard of it because there was an album on OCR, but I never played it myself.
I have to check that out. It was the premise was you're a little like a puppet. Like it's basically a stage show is the premise, and you're like this little creature that has like a feather head. Like, I don't know if you're a bird or what you are, but you got different kind of heads. You, like, through your head, kind of like how Rayman throws his fists. And you had to basically go through, like, all the backstages and the puppet sets because there was some evil force or something. I don't know. The game was incredibly difficult. I couldn't get past the 4th level. And they thought, for whatever reason, the American audience wouldn't want continues. So I could never get anywhere on it until it came out, like, on a Sega collection on Xbox and you could save scum. That's the only way I was able to get through it because... That was also not a very gracious game.
Huh. I think I did play it a very small amount, either emulated or on the Wii Virtual Console or something. But I played like the first level and I didn't make it very far.
If you ever get a chance to like look it up on YouTube one day when you're bored or play it, I would recommend it because it is certainly a colorful pastel trip through some weird Sega type games. Have you composed for any sort of like movies or shows or anything like non-interactive medium
Video
before?
game stuff.
I did write for some short films that I had a friend who was in film school, and he did tons of different projects. And this was years ago when I was like kind of pretty early on, like maybe 2 years into seriously composing. And I wrote for his short film, I think like the second one in the series, and then I also did some music for the third one.
Okay.
And then, or maybe he like used music that I'd already written for the third one. I don't really remember, but I did write for short films. I haven't really scored much apart from that. I did write the music for Wargroove's opening, which was very fun. I love scoring action. It's like it's just a big puzzle because
Okay.
the way it works out
kinda
most of the
set.
time is you get like a pretty close to done project and you just have to figure out how to fit the music to it. With Wargroove, it was a little bit different. We worked with a studio called The Line, and they actually did the newest Gorillaz music video, and they've done a bunch of other really awesome high-profile gigs.
Wait, like
But
the one with Ace in it?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh man, we do have a rock star with us. Come on, man.
That one was really fun because The Line, like, they sent over a really early draft of the animation, and I got to kind of start fitting together the sections and the big beats of the music, and then we kind of went back and forth with it, where the animation would come together a little bit more, and then the music would come together a little bit more. And once we reached a point, we were able to just like both of us kind of finished up on our own. But it was a really cool collaborative process, and I really do love scoring action when I have the opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, I hope you get a chance to do a little bit of that, a little bit more of that going forward.
Yeah, me too.
Steph, I feel bad because this is a super like my wheelhouse kind of episode.
No, I'm enjoying listening.
Was there anything
Jumping in when I can.
that you might want to ask in the meanwhile while I'm just getting a few things together?
Yeah, definitely feel free to ask whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, just like,
Not to put you on the spot, I do apologize.
just yeah, geez, on the spot. So like, and like, forgive me if you have explained this and it like went over my head, but so how did you get from doing the remixes to like going out and auditioning for professional stuff?
Yeah, I guess we didn't really get there yet. So yeah,
You mentioned like having the Project M, so like where was that transition between remixes and like original scores?
right, and actually there was a fan game before Project M that I wrote the music for with my friends Jameson and Kevin. And Kevin's actually one half of Hyper Potions, which is they do tons of really good future bass on Monster Cat. I don't know if you're into that at all.
They do some really good future bass. I've seen them on Sonic Mania, some Game Chop stuff. So they do some cool stuff, and they're represented by corgis. What more could you want?
Right. And Jameson actually did a lot of the sound design in Sonic Mania, and he's done some other stuff with Sega projects, which is awesome.
We have like a shared universe going on this podcast, and we're gonna get that whole crew eventually. So,
so do you know Ruby Eclipse at all?
The song, or
no, it's he was a really prominent guy in the Sega community. He ran the Sonic Twitter for a while. I think he still might do some of it. I'm not sure if he does all of it. I haven't kept up with Aaron in a long time, but anyway,
okay, yeah. I knew like Aaron. I knew of Aaron. So. Okay.
He was running a fan project based around Spiral Knights, which I've never played, but it was like an online multiplayer RPG, I think. And I got to do a few tracks for that, but they were still mostly remixes. And then, so that was my very first game project. And then I think Project M kind of came through while I was like on the forums on OCR. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I was the only one offering to write original music. And oh my God, my first takes were terrible. I still have the whips, and I actually I compiled a bunch of older, like just a playlist for myself of older demos that I haven't used, just in case I need to go through and like pull material from anything. But
Okay.
two of them are very early iterations of the Project M theme, which sound nothing like the finished product, and they are just terrible.
It is fun hearing like the old works in progress from things that you're like, oh, I love this song, and you hear the whip, you're like, I'm glad they kept working on it.
Yeah, I'll send you guys the whips in the Discord channel so you can have a laugh.
Yeah, I'd like to hear them. That's that exclusive content.
It's
it's always fun, like regardless of whether it's music or like writing or anything. Like, and I say fun in a very broad scope of the word fun to go back and look at your
marks around
yeah. Fun to go back and like read your early creative work versus like what you're doing now, because like woof.
Seeing drafts is always really fun, I think, and it can be really inspiring too, just to see like if it's someone that you really appreciate their work, just seeing their process, and even if it's for one track, like seeing what the process is for that, or if it's like you want to think a little bit bigger and see where they came from, and like if they kind of have their journey logged a bit, and you can go back and see really old stuff and then kind of work your way up to where they are now. It's really cool to see the progress that they've made, and it's encouraging to know that if they can do it, then maybe you can too.
That is an inspiring way to think about that. I like that. So yeah, we're really heavy on the so between the both of us, we like fan fics, fan arts, fan music, and all that kind of stuff. So it's good to see people go up that ramp of like evolving through the different ranks of it.
Yeah, for sure.
I really like the idea of like remix culture like expanding, because I grew up in fanfic, so like like seeing that like same like creative remixing kind of going on in so many different media is really cool. It's just like it kind of speaks to like, because there's like the idea of like there's like transformative fandom and like collection-y fandom, where like if you're like a collector, you want to have everything mint, you're like collect knowledge about the thing or whatever, whereas the transformative, you're like, I love this so much that I want to make something with it.
Yeah, and
that's so much more meaningful to me.
It's I agree. That's, I think, enjoying so much that you want to put your own spin on it is something really special. And beyond remixing, I think something that I really enjoy doing, that I've really only put out one short project of these kind of tunes, but I personally like one of my favorite games is Metroid Prime, and it's definitely one of my favorite soundtracks too. It's absolutely incredible, and I liked it so much that I put together a few original tracks in the style of Metroid Prime and released it as a 3-track album. So yeah, I agree. It's really cool to see people take something that they really enjoy and then use their skills to make it their own.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying the idea. Like, I love remixes, but tribute albums and tribute art is kind of, it's a different thing that's still within remix culture to a degree. It's kind of that nice mix between fanfic and fan remix, and I think it's a very beautiful thing.
For sure.
While we're just good.
I was just gonna say, really briefly, to try and get Steph's question taken care of, because we keep getting sidetracked.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
So yeah, I did Project M, and then shortly after that, I think a few months even, because Project M came out in like November, and I guess that track took me about 6 months to write, because I had pretty much no experience with orchestral music at that point, and it came together slowly, to say the least. But I did learn a lot in the process, and I'm very proud of the final product. Wow, that was hard to get out. So yeah, a few months later, Brandon Hood, who runs the Chiptunes Win community, which is great, and everybody there is super welcoming. That was kind of where I got my feet wet with chiptune. He approached me to do a track for one of the compilations that they were doing, which was like St. Patrick's Day. They were doing like Irish themed chiptunes, and I put together a
Nice.
really stupid track called Pub Step. That's a combination of it's chiptune with some Irish penny whistle, of course, and dubstep too.
Wow.
Interesting.
How can you call it stupid? That sounds
It's
like
it was hilarious. It's
like
such
it would have gone like past satire into just like
To be fair,
greatness.
if I search pub step on my Google on my phone, the first thing that says song by Phonetic Hero. So I think
Nice.
you've cornered the market. Yeah, it's like a nice.
That's
Okay.
awesome. I think there was a song that existed before that on YouTube that was called like Irish Pub Step or something like that. But I think
You've
mine
cornered
was
the
a little
market on
better.
Irish pub step.
Yeah, I'm gonna add that.
So I
Ooh,
did that track.
Keltunes equals win. I'm gonna add that to my
It's
watch
a really
later.
good compilation. Definitely check all of it out. There's a lot of like everybody in the chiptune community is just so goofy and dumb.
It
That's
keeps
what makes
everybody
it fun,
happy.
though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a lot of fun putting that kind of stuff together. So I did that track, and actually it was received so well that I got picked up by an agency in Australia, and I've been doing work with them ever since. It's run by a guy named Fabian, who he's the perfect person to be doing the job that he's doing, and I've I wouldn't be working with them still if I wasn't extremely on board with what was going on. It's a non-exclusive agency, so I don't have to do only work through them. I'm free to go out and find my own gigs, which is kind of what happened with Wargroove. I got the gig nailed down, and then he helped considerably with negotiations and contracting and stuff. So I guess that was kind of the transition from remixing to doing game work. I got a little bit lucky because of getting picked up by an agency is just because of a random tune. I think it's a little bit hard to give myself credit on account of that, but at the same time, I think you get a lot more lucky the more you hone your craft, and I have definitely put in a lot of work. I'll give myself credit for that.
For sure.
You say luck. A lot of like luck when you're creative does also come from like putting out good work and like
Yeah, I agree.
having a good portfolio.
And like 99% of the stories that I've heard of people, making it in the music industry is like they had a lucky opportunity come their way, but they were at a point in their career and their skill with their craft that they were able to take advantage of the opportunity as it came their way. And like
you get to work hard to get the opportunity,
right.
then work hard to keep it once luck hit. You need both, it feels like.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you get an opportunity and you're not in a place where you can take advantage of it, whether it's because of your skill level or some other reason, it's always some of both. I think it's hard work and a lot of luck.
Makes sense. It sounds like a very good journey.
I can't complain too much. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I know we're probably running out of time. Were there any interesting other facts you wanted to throw out before we ask you like 3 questions to end this out? 3 small questions.
Interesting facts. I don't know. What are you looking for?
I always like to ask people if the general internet found out we were interviewing you, what would be a question they'd be mad we missed?
I guess as far as interesting facts, like we'll kind of go with what do you do with the rest of your time when you're not writing music?
Yeah,
And,
sort of
I
the...
Is
really-
the answer play video games?
A lot of the time, yes. I really like fitness though. I was a very, very skinny kid for my entire life. And then I got into lifting weights when I moved in with ectogemia like 5 years ago. We were living together in Indianapolis, and he'd been lifting weights prior to when I moved in. And he got me into it. And after a couple years, I started doing more calisthenics stuff because the idea of like being able to control my body in space is really appealing to me. Just having the strength and the command over my own body weight, I really like. And kind of an end goal for me has always been tricking and acrobatics.
Ooh, hardcore parkour.
Nice.
Yeah, I used to do gymnastics when I was a kid. But
Nice.
you give up stuff like that when you turn 12 or 13 because it's not cool anymore.
Oh yeah, I wish I would have never gave up on all my younger passions.
For sure, me too. But I have started getting back into tricking over the last, like, what is it now? Almost April. 3 or 4 months, and
Cool.
it's been a ton of fun. I'm like addicted to it. Learning a bunch of different flips and all this other stuff. So I really enjoy that.
Yeah, you can do a standing backflip. I think I saw.
I can do a standing backflip.
Yeah. I would break every bone in my body.
It's scary to get started for sure. Backflips are pretty easy. I'm trying to learn how to incorporate spin with them right now. So like one of the tricks that I'm working on is called an Arabian, where you start doing a backflip and then you end up facing the other way. So it's basically
That's
a
so
backflip
scary.
with a 180. There's a lot of other
imagine
stuff.
how you learned that.
I've got messed up wrists.
This took
too,
on like a
so-
whole other turn. Like I was like, oh, this guy makes really good music. Oh, also amazing flips.
But yeah, that's a lot of fun.
What if you took
That's-
walking and you remixed it, basically?
Yeah, exactly. It's a very liberal arrangement of walking.
I always thought there should be an extreme walking game, a la Tony Hawk or something like that. Mirror's Edge was almost that, but I want like a trick system, you know.
Yeah, having like a parkour game would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Someone get on that. Let's get the indie walker. Well, cool. Before we get you out of here, we always do a questions round, but I think we're a little tight on time, so we'll probably ask one of those. But I wanted to ask real quick. You worked on Wargroove. You were a fan of Advance Wars, and you mentioned Sammy before. But I want to know: do you have a favorite faction in Wargroove and a favorite faction in Advance Wars?
Oh man, that's tough. In
I won't hold you to
Wargroove-
any of this.
Man, it's like it's so hard for me to pick a faction in Wargroove just because I got to be part of the creation process for all of them, so I love them all in their own way.
That's fair. That one's a little close to home, I admit.
I do really like the undead aspect of Felheim.
It's
and I think,
very cool. I like the vampires.
yeah, I think Valder's Groove gets overlooked a lot because he summons a skeleton, and it's just like a basic soldier, but which seems not really that good, but it's an extra unit which can really work to help overpower your opponents, and it's also like it charges really fast. So I think that's really cool. I also like Sigrid a lot just because I'm really proud of how her theme came out because it was like not because of how it came out and that I think it's better than the others, but just the process was really difficult and I had to really analyze a bunch of different tunes to figure out what kind of sound I wanted. But I also really like Heaven Song. I really like Ryota and Tenri. And writing all the music for Heaven Song was also really fun. I really liked getting to use a lot of the Japanese instruments.
Yeah, I think they have a very strong theming in that faction.
For sure. So I guess it would be between those two if I absolutely had to pick a favorite faction.
Hey, I won't make you.
And in Advance
I've got
Wars... What were you going
I
to
was
say?
going to say, when you're done with Advance Wars, I have a question to bounce off of that.
Sure, yeah. That's really difficult in Advance Wars because I like different COs depending on the scenario, but Sammy's obviously my favorite, but I think Andy's annoying, so it's hard for me to pick Orange Star.
Yeah, how did you feel about Jake's theme? Because I felt like it was such like butt rock that I kind of liked it.
It was, yeah, that game had quite a different aesthetic as far as the instrumentation and stuff, and I guess it was just a logical expansion on where the Game Boy Advance tunes went.
Yeah, it was had a little bit more power.
It was definitely goofy. I kind of thought Jake's character was weird and annoying, but his theme was pretty cool.
It was pretty rocking and had some scratching. Like that whole soundtrack actually had a lot of weird hip hop influences.
Yeah,
yeah,
I like
in
that
weird
a lot.
spots. I was like, is there hip hop in like this kind of German Russian song, like with Green Earth and stuff like that? I like this.
So I guess for Advance Wars, I really like Eagle. He's another one of my favorite COs, just because his super is like ridiculously good. Especially in
Dual
Advance
Strike,
Wars
you mix
2.
him with Sammy.
Yeah, it's just game over.
Did you play Dual Strike?
I haven't played a ton of it. I have it started. I've been playing so much Advance Wars 2 for the past like few years that I haven't really I haven't played as much as I would like to, I guess.
So in Dual Strike there was this like really broken thing that you could do called tag ability.
Right. I do remember reading about Eagle and Sammy combining to basically be game over.
Yeah, because Eagle, you do all the units, and then you could move like all your aerial units and maybe some other ones, and then Sammy gets to go with her extended mech runs and instant capture, so you could just sprint across the field in one massive turn, and you probably would win. Like,
right.
With Eagle's bombers and her mechs, you take over everything. So busted and so fun, and they got a power boost because they were friends. So
right, yeah, I do. Like, I remember seeing that on the wiki and thinking it was hilarious.
It was so funny.
So I guess Green Earth would probably be my pick.
That's solid. I can go with that. I liked Black Hole just because Hawk and Lash.
I did like Black Hole
I don't know
a
if
lot
I'd pick
too.
them.
Lash is really cool. I actually haven't really I didn't like her until I figured out how strategic you have to be.
Yeah, because you can just destroy people from mountains.
Yeah,
like,
it's all about
absurd,
positioning
so.
with her, and like that's a really cool aspect of her as a CO.
Yeah. Steph, you had a bounce-off question, right?
Yeah, so is it weird to play video games that have your music in them? I know that, like, sometimes, like, when I'm done writing something, like, I'm like, okay, I'm done with that.
It's
like...
very weird, yeah. It's always really cool, though, and I mean, like, that seeing that final product is why you're putting all the work in, right? So it's always weird, at least at first, but it's also, like, that's probably the most fulfilling aspect of the job for me.
Nice. Does it ever is it ever not like in the front of your mind when you're playing a thing like, oh, this is the thing I wrote, or like can you turn that part of your brain off and like actually just focus on the playing?
It definitely pops back into focus whether I'm thinking about it a bunch or not. But I think most of the time, yeah, I can kind of get absorbed in whatever game I'm playing, and then I'll like some part of the music will happen that will catch my attention and it'll come back to me. But I guess it's not like constantly poking at me, but it's there often.
But yeah, I definitely have that feeling where like, and it varies from thing to thing. Like I can definitely like listen to an episode of the podcast later and like only be a little weirded out the way my voice sounds when recording.
It's always so weird.
You definitely get used to it. I've heard our voices so much.
Yeah, Dom does the editing, so he's heard everything like twice as much as I have.
I know your voice, the way it sounds at 1 time speed and also at 1.5 times speed.
Oh yeah, I guess that's probably best for editing.
Yeah, everyone almost sounds the same, but just when I'm trying to sync up the audio, when I say something for the audio, and be like, here's something, so I've heard you say the words, here's something, about 50 times in quick succession. I'm like, I don't want to hear this person ever again until next week.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair, having to listen to 2 hours of audio of people talking.
Yeah, you definitely have to listen to it fast. Because you're most, like, the content was good. If there's anything egregious, we would catch it and mark it. So it's mostly listening for coughs and ums and sirens and motorcycles and taking out what you can. So. Right. Cool. I mean, I think that's mostly everything. Steph, did you want to do any of the rapid fire questions? Was there anything that you think might really be apt?
Well, there's a Sonic one.
There is a Sonic one.
There's always a Sonic one.
Do you have about 5 minutes or so?
Sure.
That we can use?
Yeah, I actually just got word from my brother, and we're kind of pushing our discussion until later anyway.
But I guess that gives us a couple more minutes, so we'll be brief, but we won't rush too fast.
Sure.
So we normally end with a rapid fire question section that's not always as rapid as we like, because we love to ramble. But it's sort of like general nerd questions, not to test anybody, but just more of a something to do. So yeah, Steph mentioned there is a Sonic one. So if you could be one of the animal friends from Sonic the Hedgehog, who would you be? So sort of like, who would your Sonic OC be?
Like,
yeah,
what kind of an animal would I be?
Yeah, what would your like crappy name be?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, like Sonic is Sonic because he runs fast. I'd be like Talks the cat or Talks the fox or something.
He like tunes the echidna or something.
I don't know, maybe a bat, because I think flying would be pretty cool.
That's a fair reason. What would your name be?
Boy, I don't know. Tunes was pretty good. Let's stick with that.
Tunes the Bat. I like it. Look, the
Into it.
collaborative effort. Steph, do you want to pull a couple of these off?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. I mean, it's been so long since I asked some of these questions.
I know, it's been almost a year. We're back on the saddle now.
If you could have any person play you in a movie or a show, who would that person be?
I'm not super... There aren't a ton of actors that have, like, my sort of build, because everybody in Hollywood is thick and handsome, you know what I mean?
That's fair, yeah.
Dorito shaped.
I guess, like...
Dorito or Cheeto.
As far as body type, like, Tom Holland is probably pretty close. So maybe...
People like Tom Holland, so that's not even a bad choice.
He can do a backflip, too.
You're right. He does all his own, like, flip stunts, so...
Because he's, like, a trained dancer.
Right. He actually, like, does a bunch of gymnastics, too, I think. So, yeah, I'd probably Tom Holland.
That's Tom.
So, yeah.
Tom Holland acts.
There you go.
Jim does gymnastics and spoils movies that he's in. That's his MO. Have you kept up with the Marvel Universe at all? This MCU?
Not like on the cutting edge. Like I haven't seen Miss Marvel. I'd really like to. But I have seen, you know.
I haven't even seen Avengers, so I'm behind.
I haven't seen Avengers 2, but other than that, I think I've seen pretty much everything except for Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I really liked the first Ant-Man. It was kind of slow for the first half, but the second half was so much fun that it's hard not to like.
Cool.
Nice. I still haven't seen that one, but I've seen most of the other ones.
Yeah, I think other than that, I'm caught up.
And I'm, like, terrified of spoilers at this point, so I just see them when they come out.
And the follow-up to that would be, if you could play any character in a show or movie, who would you want to play? And that includes voice acting, and you don't have to resemble this person if you don't want to.
Let me think a little bit. Probably Nightwing, because he's always been my favorite DC character.
Nice.
I know they were talking about
Good stuff.
before Legend of Korra. One of the things that team was working on was a pitch for a Nightwing cartoon, which would have been super cool.
Oh man, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, but we got Korra instead, so I can't be that upset about it.
Yeah, could be worse.
And I guess we'll close with these two. You know, it's again sort of that time where we have to finish some stuff over our time.
For sure.
But are you familiar with Harry Potter or Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Both, yeah.
He just said he likes Korra, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you liked it or just knew of it.
Airbender is like one of the best TV shows that's been made in the last. When did it start? Like.
Oh God.
10 years or more ago.
It's been like 10 years, Naomi.
Yeah,
Oh man.
That's been a while.
Yeah, Airbender's great though.
Yeah, it's so good.
So, since you are aware of it, which elemental bender would you be?
Air for sure. That's not even a question in my mind.
Do you want to explain why that is from your perspective? Because I have my reasons, but I'm curious what yours are.
Well, I really like the acrobatics and stuff, and I like that they seem to have a better command over their bodies and space than some of the other elements. Earth, to a degree, I think, has a lot of that, but the airbenders are just like, they seem to just have a really good command over how they're moving and what they're doing all the time.
That makes sense. I just came at it from a selfish standpoint. There didn't seem to be any real situations where you could stop them. Like, fire needs the sun, water needs water, unless you're like a bloodbender.
Yeah, I guess
and
that's
Earth
true.
needs something. But air is like, heck, we can breathe underwater because there's air there. We're unstoppable.
Yeah,
I like
guess
that
that's
amount
true
of power.
too. I always kind of felt that as well. And like Zahir in Korra just straight up suffocates that lady with just air, just taking her
Just
air
totally.
from her.
Yeah, like that was just so wild to me. And then they were like, "Oh wait, this is Nickelodeon. We can't say killed."
Right.
So they had to they kept saying like euphemisms like they took her out, like.
Yeah, or like they could go with the old school Dragon Ball Z where they send her to the next dimension.
Look,
not the Shadow Realm.
Going to the Shadow Realm in the next dimension was way scarier than actually dying. I mean, it was just dying, but they said you're going to the Shadow Realm. That sounded worse to me. I'm not gonna lie. Like
that sounds like it would be. There's no reprieve from the spookiness there.
Yeah, right?
Like, I've seen people come back from being dead in Dragon Ball Z. Like, they wish them back, but in next dimension... Like, we never saw Nappa again, at least until, like, the extended
That's true.
stuff.
Yeah, he was in the next dimension. He was gone forever.
Like, Goku died, like, at least twice. Nappa, gone forever. And that's worse. And the other thing that we'll ask is, do you know what your Hogwarts house is? And if you don't know, which would you pick?
Yeah, I've never taken the official tests, but
What's in your heart, though?
It would probably be Ravenclaw. I like learning about stuff. I read books a lot. I try to be somewhat like strategic and logical in my approaches to problems. It's probably Ravenclaw.
Nice. I'm also a Ravenclaw.
Nice.
Ooh. I'm a Slytherin over here. As you can tell.
Oh boy.
Talk a lot, try to be cunning. They got a bad rap in the books. They were all evil.
Big
but
ambition.
Some of us were like, let's do a bunch of stuff and talk to people. It'll be great, and maybe be good at Quidditch or soccer, whatever it would be.
Yeah, they really did all get kind of boned in the books, huh?
They were all bad guys.
Bad guys, yeah.
Which
like either cowards, like blood supremacists, or cowardly blood supremacists.
Yeah.
And it's like, you wonder if a group was chaotic evil that whole time, like, how come nobody stopped them way earlier? And why do we keep putting them in that house? Like, let's just get rid of that house and
once they get sorted there, okay, we're just gonna put you straight in the dungeon and we'll be done with you.
But then, like, we see, like, Draco, like, at least in the movie, I can't speak for all the books, but, like, we see, like, Draco's buddies, and they don't seem particularly... They don't seem ambitious, cunning, or evil.
They're just
seem
kind
like
of dumb.
Like,
maybe Hufflepuff would have been better for them.
They were loyal.
Their character trait is villain.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe Slytherin weren't that cunning. It's like, do you like hate the good guys? Then you can come be green and silver. And honestly, sometimes that's enough.
Yeah, I guess that's all it takes.
Thank you so much for your time today. Was there anything else? Any questions for us or anything else?
I don't think so. I think I'm all good. I've got a couple tracks coming out on Tiny Waves in the next few months, so I guess watch that label. And other than that, I'll keep everyone posted on Twitter. Awesome. So yeah, if people do want to find you and your work, what would your Twitter be, and where would they find that at? Twitter is just @Phonetic Hero, and you can also look up my music on Bandcamp or SoundCloud. Bandcamp is typically more album releases and soundtracks, whereas SoundCloud, there's a little more room for single releases and stuff like that. So yeah, any stuff, any of my stuff that you want to look up, those would be the two platforms to do it on. I'm also on Spotify and lots of other platforms. But I guess Spotify is the main streaming one that everyone uses, so you can definitely find me there too. Good stuff. Let's do a quick check. Let's see if they've put you onto good old Google Play, my favorite platform, because it came with my phone. I think a couple of my things are on there. I don't know if everything's on there, but you should be able to find some stuff. I see some of the songs you did for the Crypt of the Necrodancer remix. Yeah, that's right. Some Mega Man X stuff. So yeah, there's some of your stuff's here as well as the Wargroove. So yeah, you are on Google Play as well. So no matter what you have, it seems like you can check out Pete's work. So that's Phonetic Hero once again. Yeah, just give me a Google and find your preferred platform. Hey, that's the way it goes. And as we spoke about before, go check out Wargroove. I think we both recommend it as a game and as a soundtrack, and it's available for like most major platforms. And Steph, would you like to kick our social media biz? Yeah, I got that. Sure, the listeners are tired of hearing me. So if you want to find Character Reveal out there in the world, you can find it on Twitter @CharacterRev, on Facebook by Character Reveal. You can find the podcast hosted. It's characterreveal.simplecast.fm. You can find us on iTunes or the podcast catcher of your choice, Spotify, Google Play, etc., Stitcher, by just searching for Character Reveal. And if you find us on iTunes and want to give us a good review or a rating, that'd be awesome. Totes, dude. It's a good idea. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/characterreveal.
And if you want to find Dom or I separately on the internet, you can find him at Brother Dom pretty much anywhere he wants to be found.
Hashtag branding.
Yeah, he's got that branding. And then you can find me on Twitter at Captain Steph. You can find me on Instagram at HellaSteph. And you can find me on Tumblr at The Snowqueer.
Hashtag diversity. We have both. We have branding.
That's what
and
diversity is, right?
It's having multiple screen names. We win. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. Look forward to what we have coming up soon. We are, as you can tell, if you're listening to this, more episodes coming out. Come chat with us on the Discord server. It'll be in the show notes. Check out all the links in there. And I do think that's everything. Pete, Mr. Phonetic Hero, I want to extend our gratitude to you once again. Thank you so much for spending some time with us and chatting. I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. My internet's being a little bit weird and choppy, so if I don't respond for a long time or if I interject, that's why. But yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed talking with you guys.
Listeners, as always, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Characterville. And until next time, see you later.
Bye.